על הפסוק ויקחו אליך שמן זית זך כתית למאור. We're learning Likutei Sichot from volume 1 for parashat Tetzaveh. So on the verse, they should take for you pure olive oil, crushed for lighting. אומרים רז"ל, the sages say, שישנם 3 סוגי שמן. There are 3 types of oil. ולמנורה היה צורך בשמן הראשון. And the menorah, the candelabra in the tabernacle, received the very first of the oil, meaning that it's the first oil that comes out of the olive.
And that wasn't crushed, that was squeezed.
Yes, on the tree itself. It was squeezed while they were picking it from the tree. כפי שדובר פעמים רבות קיים כל עניין בתורה ובמיוחד בענייני המשכן והמקדש שלגביהם מפרשים רז"ל את הפסוק ושכנתי בתוכם בתוך כל אחד ואחד מישראל בעבודה רוחנית בנפש האדם. So as we said even last week, that everything that's in the tabernacle is represented also in the person's psyche. בתורה ישנן שלוש דרגות. So how do we see this particular type of olive oil for lighting in the person's psyche? We see that in the Torah there are 3 types of teachings, which are divided into 3 levels. And they are likened to water, wine, and oil. החלק הנגלה שבתורה הוא מים. The revealed part of the Torah is what we call Gemara and Mishnah and all the Midrashim. They are what we call water. Razeh Torah, the secrets of the Torah, Kabbalah, that's called yain, that's called wine. V'razin de razin, and the secrets within the secrets, or the hidden within the hidden. Somebody told me very nicely that the secret means that it should not be revealed. A secret is something that if you reveal, you're a blabbermouth. You're a rachil, olech rachil. And even Rashbi has that. Olech rachil megale sod. He darshans at the beginning of the Zohar this verse, that the one who walks around speaking about other people's secrets is called the rachil. But Kabbalah does speak about Hashem's secrets. But so the better term to use is the concealed. So Kabbalah is the concealed, and the concealed within the concealed is likened to oil, and that is Chassidus. And what is the difference between oil and wine? That the sages say in the Mishnah, Shemen tzaf al gabei yain. You can see that it's higher because the oil will what's the word? Float even on wine. כלומר, השמן הוא בדרגה נעלית יותר מן היין, which indicates that whatever is likened to oil is at a higher level than whatever is likened to wine. כשם שכל ענייני התורה ישנם, הם בדרך כלל והם בדרך פרט. So just as everything in Torah has a general principle and the particulars, in other words, what he's saying is that everything subdivides further. כך גם בדרגת השמן עצמו ישנן 3 דרגות. So, within the level that we call oil, meaning within Chassidus, there are 3 internal divisions, which themselves are called the water, the wine, and the oil within oil. So we have a name for this. I don't know why he doesn't use it. It's called Itkalelut. Itkalelut means inter-inclusion. And so all 3 types of teachings, water, wine, and oil, are represented within the oil. And the same would be true about the water, and the same would be true about the wine. You'd have the water, wine, and oil of water, and the water, oil, and wine of wine, and the water, wine, and oil of oil. So altogether there are 9. And really, I don't know why I guess on purpose he didn't mention this, but there are 9 types of oil, actually. Not just 3. But, okay. לפיכך ישנם בתורת החסידות עצמה. So within Chassidus itself, which is the oil of Torah, there is what we call the pnimiyut Torah, the Chassidus within the Chassidus. That this we call the oil. כפי שאומר כבוד קדושת מורי וחמי אדמו"ר, שבתורת החסידות יש גם מחוכמת המוסר ומחוכמת החקירה, אלא שהם ברוח החסידות. So since we have oil, which is Chassidus itself, has the water, wine, and oil of the oil, the Friedrich Rebbe explained that these are what we call the Musar. Would be like the ethics within Chassidus. That would be like the revealed tradition of Torah, because all the ethics are discussed in the Mishnah of Avos, what they call the ethics of the fathers. So that, whenever the Chassidus discusses ethics, then that's the water of the oil. That's the revealed tradition within Chassidus. Whenever Chassidus discusses philosophy, Jewish philosophy, Chokhmat HaChakira, so that would be the wine within the oil. Because that is already like wine. That's not the revealed tradition. It's interesting that he doesn't say, what would I have expected him to say? The Kabbalah within Chassidus, because there's a lot of Kabbalah within Chassidus. So it's interesting. So he calls it Chokhmat HaChakira. I have to say what he calls it in the Yiddish, in the original Yiddish, but I'm imagining it's the same thing. But the point is that Kabbalah is also considered Chakira Elokit. It's also called especially the early Kabbalah, up to the Ramak, was like learning philosophy of theology. And so that's what it means, Chakira Elokit. So this could still mean, in practice, this wisdom of philosophy could still be relating directly to Kabbalah. El Hashem beruach HaChassidut, but they're learnt in Chassidus from the point of view of Chassidus, of the way that Chassidus sees everything, and what would be the point of view of Chassidus. The point of view of Chassidus would be that everything is how Hashem is reflected, God is reflected within my psyche, within my soul. All the godliness is reflected in my soul. Same thing would be true of the Torah itself. The Torah is reflected in the revealed tradition of the Torah. It's reflected within my body, within my soul. There's a very important book of Musar called Sefer Charedim. Okay? You've heard about Sefer Charedim. And in Sefer Charedim, he does one of the things that everybody is very interested in, is that he takes all the commandments, the pshat of the commandments.
Who wrote this book?
I can't remember right now.
When was it written?
He wrote in the 1400s, maybe even 1500s. And yeah, I think it's 1500s. I think it was in Sfat even. And he corresponds all the commandments that belong to a particular part of the body to that body part. He says, with the hands you do these commandments, with the arms, with the eyes you do this commandment, with the mouth you do these commandments, and so on. So that's a very Chassidish way of looking at ethics and looking at the revealed tradition of Torah, because you're saying that everything is divided based on how it reflects itself in me, and that's Chassidus. Okay, Gimel. Yitron Hashemen al hamayim v'hayayinu. What is the advantage, or why is oil superior to water and to wine? Hamayim v'hayayin nimtzeim b'makom bo omdim, ach einam mamshichim lalechet. Water and wine, when they're standing, they just stand. You don't see any movement. It doesn't have the ability, is what he's going to call now, to penetrate.
Spread.
Not to spread out, you'll see in a second. ואילו בשמן יש דין של תורה שהוא מפעפע בכולו. But by oil, there's a special halacha that says, it's like an observation of Chazal, but it's like you build your understanding. It's okay. That oil, so adsorbed, do you want to say? Maybe that's the exact word.
Not absolute.
Adsorbed, I understand, with a D. So the word that we usually use to describe this is that oil I don't know how to turn it into a verb, but it does osmosis by itself. It doesn't need any external mechanism, like a difference in pH or anything like that. It does it by itself. It penetrates everything by itself. Okay. That's called מפעפע בכולו. כלומר, כשהוא נמצא במקום מסוים, הוא חודר אל כל המקומות הקשורים במקום זה. When it's in one place, it will, so here you can say, expand into wherever it is, whatever is accessible. And it will penetrate everything, or be absorbed.
It doesn't do that on wood, though. It does it on paper.
Yeah, I guess there's certain types of things that do. כך גם ברוחניות. כשאדם לומד הניגלה של התורה בלבד, עלול להיות שלמרות שנמצאת בו תורה, הרי הוא והתורה מהווים שני דברים נפרדים. It says, the same thing is true spiritually. When a person is only learning the revealed tradition of Torah, so it could be that even though he has Torah in him, Torah is like water, he and the Torah are two separate things, because it has not been absorbed, it has not penetrated his full being. ואילו בלימוד רזין דרזין שבדורנו זהו תורת החסידות, but in learning the concealed tradition of Torah, which in our generation is called Chassidus, השמן מפעפע בכולו. The oil penetrates all of him. הוא חודר לקרבו עמוק עמוק עד שהוא התורה נעשים דבר אחד, כדוגמת אותיות חקיקה. It enters him deeply to the very depths of his being until he and the Torah become one thing, and the example of this in reality is like engraved letters, where the letters are made out of the material into which they're engraved. And they're not like when you write something with ink, that the ink is something additional to the paper on which you're writing. Chapter 4. כאמור לעיל, היה דרוש למאור השמן הראשון, שמן שבשמן. Like we said before, for the lighting of the menorah, you needed the very first oil that came out of the olives. Olives just means oil, no?
Sorry?
What does the word olive mean? Just oil. Right? It's just a fancy way of saying oil.
No.
Olive. It's O-L. It starts O-L.
Olive is the fruit.
I understand, but the word itself, what does it mean? It just means the thing that oil comes from. Yeah, it sounds like it's the same thing as oil. That's what it sounds like. ההבדל בין פנימיות התורה בכלל לבין הנגלה של התורה הוא, so the difference in general between the concealed tradition and the revealed tradition of Torah is גליה דתורה לבושה בשכל האנושי. The revealed tradition uses what we call the human mind, what we call the regular rational mind of the person. ולפיכך יש גם אז מקום למציאות והרגשת הישות. Because of that, there is room for a feeling of self there. And not just a feeling of self, but even a feeling of self-pride. Yeshut, of being. You have a sense of being when you're learning. ואילו פנימיות התורה דנה בעניינים של אלוקות וביטול העולמות, ואין כאן מקום לישות כל כך. And because the concealed tradition of Torah deals with godliness and the nullification of the worlds, the way that they nullify to God, אין כאן מקום לישות כל כך. There's not that much room for a sense of separate being. בוקר טוב. כך גם ההבדל בפנימיות התורה עצמה בין מים ויין שבשמן לבין שמן שבשמן. And this also is the difference in the concealed tradition between the water and wine within the concealed tradition, within the oil, and the oil of the oil, meaning concealed tradition within the concealed tradition. מאחר שגם בפנימיות התורה ניתנה באופן שאפשר לקלוט אותה בשכל, since the concealed tradition here we're talking about Chassidus is explained in such a way that the mind can understand it, the regular rational mind can understand it. הרי מבחינת ההשגה והבנה זה עניין של מים ויין, ולכן נאמר שצריך להיות שמן שבשמן כתית למאור. כלומר, ההתבטלות שבפנימיות התורה הבאה במיוחד לאחר עבודת התפילה. So because of this, you can understand that even there, because it's given to the rational mind, there can be some degree of a sense of being, because it comes with the mind. It's meant to be understood with the mind. So because of that, you need the concealed of the concealed, or the choice oil, the oil of the oil, which means bitul, which means the power of nullification, and this especially occurs when? After you pray. That's a big chiddush, because usually when do we say that you should have bitul? Before you daven. And here he says it's especially when after you daven that you can come to nullification. What is that like? That in halacha we say mi bet hakneset le bet midrash. From davening you continue the day with learning. And so the davening is a preparation. It's a way of reaching a state of nullification before Hashem, and then learning Chassidus. And that's why, how do you do your chitas? Yeah.
During the day.
So if you do it in the morning, so one part at least you should do in the morning. Which part is that? So everybody says, most people say Tehillim with Rashi on. But then you put a Rabbeinu Tam on. And it says the Rabbeinu Tam is the Abba, is the father principle. It's the Mochin de Abba. Mochin de Abba is bitul. That is nullification. So what should you do when you have the Rabbeinu Tam on? You should at least learn the Tanya of the day. You should learn some Chassidus with the Rabbeinu Tam. That is taking advantage of the bitul that the person has right after he davens in order to learn some Chassidus. But the truth is that if you have time, if you learn, not like us before davening. Okay, let's do the next one.
Olive in Greek means
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 5. בסוף parashat Tetzaveh, מצווה התורה על מזבח הזהב. So at the end of parashat Tetzaveh, so this was, by the way, this was the what we call the submission. Why is it the submission? Because it says even within Chassidus, you have to have a sense of nullification. And that sense of nullification is saying to somebody, even though you're learning Chassidus, you have to know that it's true that Chassidus doesn't lend itself very much to a feeling of self, and yet you still have to be on guard. And you still have to have a sense of nullification when you're learning. Okay. בסוף parashat Tetzaveh, at the end of parashat Tetzaveh, מצווה התורה על מזבח הזהב. We have the final vessel, the description of the final vessel in the tabernacle. And it's separate from the other vessels, because the other vessels were all explained in Parshas Truma. So Mefarshei Torah makshim. So the commentaries on the Torah, they question this. And they say, Lichora yatzach mizbach hazav limanot im shar klei hamishkan parashat Truma. Seemingly, the golden altar, which was inside the tabernacle, should have been explained and described in the previous parsha, Truma, with the rest of the vessels. Sham nimnim hashulchan v'hamnorah. There we have the descriptions of the table of showbread and the menorah. Shamdu yachad mizbeach hazahav ve'oel moed. And they stood together with the golden altar within the sanctuary of the tabernacle. They were in the same place. So why are they separated when they're described? Again, the table of showbread and the menorah were described in Truma, together with the Ark of the Covenant, and together with the external altar, and all the different utensils that it had. All that was described in Truma. The only vessel that was not described was the golden altar, which was also inside the sanctuary, in the same place. So why is it that the golden altar is set apart, and it's explained only after everything that was done in the Mishkan, even after the garments of the high priest and the priests? Everything was already described. It's the last thing. So that's the question. So the issue is, התורה רומזת כאן שתכלית כל העבודות שבמשכן הייתה עבודת הקטורת שהייתה על מזבח הזהב. By putting it last, it's telling us this is the consummation of all the service in the temple. What is the consummation? What was done with the golden altar? That's where the incense was placed. That's where the incense burned within the sanctuary. And the incense is a very important part of the worship. במקום בו נכנס רק הכהן שהקטיר את הקטורת. And it can't be seen. It's not outside like the external altar. It's something that's done inside, and only by the priest.
He was alone when he did that, right?
What?
He was alone when he did that?
And he has to be that's by Yom Kippur.
Yeah, I know, but it's also...
I think that he also has to be alone when he puts the... Okay. I'm not sure, but you're probably right. Yeah, it says here, V'sham haya rak hakohen v'akadosh baruch hu. And it could be only the priest and God within the sanctuary when he was putting the incense on the golden altar. Kamur b'Yerushalmi, the pasuk, as it says in Yerushalmi, the way the Yerushalmi understands the verse, V'chol adam lo yeh b'ohel moed bevo'o. That no person should be in the sanctuary when the priest comes in to put the incense on the golden altar. Afilu otam shekatuv behem udmut pneihem chasheret. These are the angels of hosts. So even they are ministering angels. Thank you. מכל עבודות המשכן, הרי רק בעבודת הקטורת המזבח הזהב בכל יום, היו הכהן והקדוש ברוך הוא בלבד, ושם הייתה השראת השכינה. Of all the services done in the tabernacle every day, the only one where God and the priest were there alone, and that's where the presence revealed itself, godly presence revealed itself. Hashrat HaShekhinah, it's like inspired, hovered over, was in this service of bringing the incense. Now we need to learn from this, like we said, for our lives. And how does this play out in our lives? What we learn from this, we don't bring incense, but all the mitzvahs that we do, they're good smells. Except here you could say that this good smell is particularly different because it's done alone, without anyone else seeing it. So he says, for us this means that the service of the golden altar in our work, our daily work of mitzvahs, whatever we're doing, is that it shouldn't be public. It's concealed, it's private. And not like those who publish and publicize and put out ads in the newspaper that they did so and so. They give this and this amount of tzedakah. And it should be giving in a hidden way that nobody knows about it. So this is about every mitzvah that a person does. Should do it in such a way that other people don't know about it.
They asked the Rebbe, you're allowed to put a plaque in the wall of the base about this.
That's something else. You don't have to ask the Rebbe. It says in the Shulchan Aruch. It says in the Gemara, מפרסמים עושי מצווה. בוקר טוב.
לא נכנסים להתפלל אחר כך חסד המניין.
כן, כן, אנחנו גמרנו.
שזה המניין תמיד, זה לא מניין.
למה לא?
מגיע ל-18, אין לו מניין בכלל. 3-4 איש עומדים איתו. זה לא יודע גם בכלל.
לא, אי אפשר להבין הכל. The world is a strange place. This is about every mitzvah that a person does. So we'll have to talk about why this is separation tomorrow. Thursday. We'll talk about it Thursday. Hopefully I won't be 200 shekels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow you can come late.